video stream of a Frogland town hall. We'd like to take this opportunity to have a bit of a retrospective to look back over the course of the past year at the journey that we've all undertaken at the world of Notorious Frogs. It's been an interesting journey. Starting back in, I think, probably about June was when the idea was first created. We formed the dream team. 3 dynamic duos with a love for pizza, digital assets, real-time rendering, and a wicked bonding curve assembled a more notorious idea, which is to develop these frogs. Of course, pizza being the thing that brought us all together at the Pizza DAO. We had some fascinating individuals who you now know as the founding team of Frogland. It was a cool project, given the early state of the space back sort of last 2021. We'd started developing an initial concept, but after watching the space and seeing a few DMCA takedowns of projects that weren't too far off of what we were doing, we decided to dig down a little deeper, to build something a little more special and to take our time. With that, the Notorious Frogs, as you know them today, were spawned, and a vestigial tale added to the founding team. Of course, you all know her as Lollyhops. This community rallied and began developing into factions, with a peerless community of dreamers, builders, gamers, and creators making up this army of frogs. Our idea grew legs and a mind of its own. We showcased the vertical slice, effectively a little taste of what's to come, something called the Dragonfly Social Club. It was released as an art and a tech demo. It was inspired, facilitated, and created by Frog Team, by the founders that you all know. And of course, helped by the former management team from Sony's flagship London studio, a team who built some very, very cool applications over the past few years and worked on PlayStation Home. And with this, a stunning proof of concept for co-creation as our model began to form, with Web3 being our production studio with the name of Good Ribbit Productions. So with that, the lore started to blossom from our community. Gameplay, gangs, alliances, all started to coalesce. We saw grudges and we saw drama. We saw heroes emerging from the foreboding gardens, drenched in chicken blood, while villains preen amongst the elite and gamble with more than coins, while syndicated from monopolies of the economy and the supply chain. So if you have been frequenting our Discord and you may have been fighting chickens yourself or gambling in the casino, this will probably make a little more sense to you. If you're not too sure what that means, even more reason to hop in and find out. But of course, in the very early days, a murder shook the frogs to our very cores. At the very peak of the frogs' gilded irreverence, disaster exposed the rot beneath. One of our own was murdered, Jimmy the Negre. Not one, but many mourned his death. It proved most infamous, and of course, it showed the frogs' immortality. And the paradise lost while chaos and salamanders reigned supreme. This chaos it reigned, with unknown, or uncone, I should say, magics, previously a banality in Frogland, were now a source of fear and distrust. Enemies arose from distant swamps. Salamanders gleefully wrote havoc in what was a harmonious melody of opulence and glut, causing further turmoil in the aggregated discord. This is, again, for those who've been participating in some of the magic guilds, some of the specialties that we see inside Frogland, there's some interesting things to dig into here. And of course, after, better part of a year, the promise of buy frog, get land came true. We managed to release the land synthesis device. Effectively, when all seemed lost and winter seemed unavoidable, a prismatic spark of hope tripped across the horizon, the LSDs. Perhaps within these strange alien devices lies the truth, or a key, or a control panel, or even a nibble of information leading to what that means. So really, this is a synopsis of what we've been doing over the past year. This world, this lore, this environment that we've been co-creating with each and every one of the Notorious Frogs has been a really remarkable journey for us to undertake. And with that, we've had some reflections. We've been thinking what we've done well, some things what we can improve and how we intend to do that. And I think this is a great opportunity to speak to other members of the Frogland team to get their own input on what they feel after a year in Frogland. So if I may, I'll pass over to Froggy Digital.
Yeah, I'm happy to go first. I will definitely say one thing that we definitely did well was making you read all that. That was pretty epic. I enjoyed that thoroughly. Yeah. Apologies first off. I've got a bit of a cold, so I'll apologize for coughing on the microphone. But yeah, I think like looking back on the past year, which we spent a lot of time doing over the past like month or so, looking at what some of the strengths are, some of the weaknesses, some of the things that we can do better. I think like for me, I don't want to get too much into the details of all this stuff, but one thing that I think we have done pretty well was sharing what we're building and trying to actually build in the open. I think when compared to some other projects or even like Web2 companies, we are trying to make good on that. It's not always perfect, but we are trying to make sure that people have some insight into what we're working on and can give us feedback. Where I do think that's kind of fallen short a little bit is actually incorporating that feedback that comes back from the community. Sometimes we haven't done a great job of being able to elevate everyone's voices and really make sure that we're getting some of those really great ideas into our process and elevating them so that the community can do their own thing. So one of the things that we are doing about that, though, is we've started new instructive sessions that started last week. I think that that's going to be a helpful process for making sure we have a two-way, bi-directional communication. And we've made a couple of strategic hires in the past month or so, one of which is a project manager. And we're actively looking for ways to be able to incorporate feedback coming from the community directly into our workflow, work streams, and processes to make sure that we're building the right things. So, we are trying, right? And I think that I'll be interested to see how all of that hits and if people appreciate that and if that's actually working. Daniel, sorry, Dunlove, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to also take a moment to say, yo, what up, everyone? Awesome to see a bunch of people here in the chat. Lobo, awesome to see you here. Dylan with Rip Jimmy, F's in the chat for Jimmy the Negro Nui, always. And yeah, it's this is gonna be fun testing out this new platform. I'm excited, happy to see you all here, and yeah, let's see where this takes us. Okay, cool. So I mean, yeah, over the last year, what have we done well? Okay, I mean, there are a few things I think we've done well. There's some things we've done not so well. One of the things I want to focus on is I think we've done well at testing out little experiments to both test obvious things with direct questions and test some non-obvious things as well in terms of like how we release something, what's a good way to release it, what's a bad way to release it, etc. And we've done that with things like the Dragonfly Social Club, with the initial release of the map, with the land synthesis devices. Like we leaked it to quite a few people early, got some feedback that actually changed the art. Also with some of the clues and things, that were going on, with the map, we made an explicit puzzle in game. With the land devices, we didn't even really leave any clues or say anything. Some people just kind of started looking for certain things. And so I think we've done that well, testing out these experiences and having these experiments. What we haven't always done well in that is formally collecting quantitative data out of that, or just formally collecting data. That we haven't always taken the opportunities of those experiments to record it in the best ways we could, and we haven't always stitched those well back into the overall experience. I mean, in the efforts to make this a cohesive platform, which is really, one of our core objectives, taking all these things and stitching them together such that we can be greater than the sum of their parts, have all these bits speak to each other. That's really, to me, how we kind of then fix that part we haven't done as well, where some of these things, like the Dragonfly Social Club, really cool experiment. Lots of things we can do with it. But, at the moment, it's something that, like, took some effort, gave us some feedback, and then just was this isolated thing that's kind of one and done. And a lot of people probably haven't been back there, but it is this core thing that is is a platform for a lot of potential that kind of can take us to a lot of places. And yeah, so I think that's some things that we can work on to improve that part where we haven't done as well, as as that infrastructure comes together, stitching that all together over this next few months. Snoop, you want to take over from me?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I mean, it's been an incredible year. I think one thing that we absolutely nailed was seeing this space evolve before it evolved. I think the founding team has a great level of experience when it comes to this emerging technology, and I think simply coming up with this whole notion of a metaverse funded by land sales, co-created by a community, is one that we've seen resonate quite fiercely through the community with a number of other projects. And I think given our first sort of ability to plant that flag in the sand with the release of the Dragonfly Social Club was incredible. I think what we could certainly do better is get the word out there. I think we have certainly maybe got a little too comfortable building in stealth rather than getting the word out and spreading the word of Frog, so to speak. And I think the way we can fix that, and a way that we're certainly going to start working on, is leveraging some of the more traditional Web2 partnerships that will get Frogland in front of an audience beyond the NFT space at the moment. So I think there's a few things we can do, and stand by certainly from a couple of updates that are going to be coming in regards to some interesting existing partners that we've been talking to for a while. But that being said, yeah, I think I'm really, really excited with how we managed to build and develop in this entirely new way with sort of co-creation at its very center. How about you, Laurie? What about you?
Hey guys, how's it going? As I say, we're already getting good feedback in the Discord that everyone's appreciating the town hall in this format, and I have to say I'm pretty excited. I like it too. Nice. So I think what we've done really well over the past year has been generating, inspiring, creating, and capturing like massive amounts of content, both from the community side and from the internal team side as well, and being able to blend all of those pieces of content together from people that are like maybe on the opposite side of the world. Maybe they hop into the Discord kind of infrequently, but when they do, they have a lot of content to kind of help give or start or support the project with. And I think that's been something that we've done really, really well over the past year. I think what we need to be better at is getting that kind of out the door and published and public in a better and like a timely and impactful manner, because I think that like there's so many good things that have been created, and it doesn't always necessarily like it gets captured, like it's caught. So like we know it's there, and we're gonna be able to come back to it at some other point. But I think we need to improve the speed at which we can kind of get that back in front of eyeballs again. And then obviously what we're doing to fix that is the last couple months, especially as a couple of other founders mentioned, we spent a whole lot of time sorting out our production pipeline, making everyone's steps through that process and everyone roles very explicit, and then refining and repeating that process. So that way we can onboard more community members and more team members and more users into that same pipeline, and have it be able to work in a much bigger scale and a much higher scope. So I think that's going to be something that I think you guys start to see the products of very, very quickly, which is definitely a good thing.
Awesome. Yeah,
that's
very, very well said. So I think there's a few things that we also want to touch on. I'm going to pass over to Froggy Digital for this, because yeah, there's a few things that we've been talking about a little bit, and we'd love to let a little more info on. Over to you, Froggy.
Yeah, I'm glad people like this new format. I think one of the things that we realized, especially with the last town hall, was that it's very difficult to talk about some of the technical concepts that we talk about in that format without having visuals. So I'm hoping this format will evolve a little bit more so that we can kind of show off things a little bit more specifically, and then drive people into some of the other things that are going on during the week to get more detail. So Lolly, if do you want to share my screen for me? So I want to walk through just a couple of things that we're working on. You guys have already seen the biomes, right? And we said that these are playable. So I pulled one up here. Let me see if I can get the controller to work correctly. And so, I mean, you can see I'm moving around here. This is running in a web browser. we've got all these different assets. Some of these assets are assets that were purchased and then modified by our team. Some of these things are things that were created ourselves. We've got the building here, and we've got the structure of all of this, right? And one thing that we want to do is make sure that we open source this. I seem to be a little bit stuck here, unfortunately. Yeah, we want to be able to open source these different assets and share them with the community so that you guys can start to play around with these things and start to build things as well. And for anyone who keyed in for the Horny's $2 Tuesdays last week, we had a conversation with Shrimp, where we were talking through how we're making some of these different assets for some of the games that we're working on, what some of the production process is that goes into that. And I think that conversation went pretty well. And after we were done talking about it, what we kind of decided was that we would probably keep that going. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to alternate between production studio content and technical content every week or 2 week during that slot, and that'll be run in the Discord. We're going to record those, right? But rather than necessarily just making them demos and showing off what we're working on, we want to make those things be a little bit more practical for people, right? So we can show the work that we're putting out there, the assets that we're creating, the games that we're creating, the experiences, how we're building those, what you guys can do as community members to contribute to those things, but also like showing off some of our techniques and patterns and practices to show you how to get started building your own stuff. We very much want Frogland to be an open platform and a community-driven platform. And now that we're a year into this, it's very much high time that we make good on that and start to disseminate and share the information that we've been working on. My mouse is stuck, so I'm gonna go ahead and reboot. This is very alpha, right? So the other thing I want to show off while that's reloading was the a quick demo of the Crossy Toad game. Right. So this is also something that we've been working on. And what you'll see in here actually is like these are actually all of the same assets that we just saw in the last example. Right. And we've got this frog here who can bounce around. We've got chickens and dragonflies flying around. All of this is very much in an alpha state. Right. We're still working on it. Oh, and I just died. I'm not very good at playing games. I have a lot of fun building them. But this is just showing off a little bit of also how we're, taking concepts, gameplay, mechanics, working them into some of these products that we're working on. And our intention is to launch an MVP of this particular game. We're probably going to do 2 levels, I think, and we're going to share this in a browser-based game, just like it is right here, with the community, so that you guys can come in and play it. Give us feedback on it, play test it, beta test it, find bugs, collect tokens, things like that, and help us figure out what the right light up features are that matter and make sense for our community as a blockchain-based community. And if you guys like this work and we're going to keep going, you want us to keep going with this, then potentially we would take this concept, finish out all of the different levels, and then create a version of this that can be disseminated and distributed through the Web 2 means, like as examples, Steam, Epic, Microsoft, Google, Apple, any of those other avenues, and try to get the game out into those experiences in a way that's compliant with their terms of services and their systems, right? And we believe that by taking this approach, this will let the community, have a lot of say and experience with what we're building, help us determine what the those light up features are, where blockchain fits in, where it doesn't, where it's too much, where it's too light, and then build versions of this that can help us get the word out about Frogland and show off the IP and some of the stories that are being told in the community and through us, right? So that's kind of the main idea here.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's worth saying, if I can jump in, Matt. I mean, this is where hopefully, with the reuse of some of the assets people saw in the biome that you were showing off, and seeing those reused here, and those both being kind of web app, WebGL, website experiences, where people can kind of maybe start to imagine what we mean when we say kind of stitching these experiences together. So, such that these disparate things start to become parts of an ecosystem which is greater than the sum of its parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, everything that we're showing right here is still very, very alpha, right? So the games might look a lot different from what it looks like here. As an example, the avatar that I was playing with is just a stock one that we pulled in, and it's not actually the one that Shrimp was working on last week. We don't know if that's going to be the one that we're going to pull in, but there's a lot of like give and take and experimentation with this stuff. And to take this back to what Snoop was saying about us having worked a little bit too much in stealth. We really want to open this up so that you guys can really see what we're working on. I think at this point, the community understands that this is a long-term project. There's going to be experimentation and research and things like that. So I think we're all very comfortable at this point in having people participate in that process and helping us find the magic of like what's fun and what's really great with what we're doing.
Yeah. I think there's actually a question from Dom Leff about, is this going to be available only on the web browser or also as a downloadable application? So I think a good way of looking at this is certainly a Web3 browser-based experience. Allows us to do some very cool experimentation. But in order to be able to get Frogland in front of a wider audience, we're going to explore getting it onto traditional app stores that may or may not feature some of that Web3 interactivity. The idea here is we have a team that has built some of the best content out there in the Web2 world, and so we're fairly cool. We realize some mini games that we're going to put our weight behind should end up being too entertaining. So with that in mind, if we can get a wider net cast simply by putting this thing on an app store, even if it doesn't have too much Web3 stuff in there, we should still be able to get fun and engagement and get more people looking over what we're doing. And then, of course, for that enhanced version, then you come to the Frogland website and you can then jump in and connect your wallet and have that rich Web3 experience.
Yeah, the browser is it's the easiest place to do that integration because that's where the maturity around all of the tooling exists for blockchain, right? So by putting this on the browser, we can use the login context of your wallet. We know who you are, and we have been working with and experimenting with doing that on thick clients using technologies like Wallet Connect and some of our own internal stuff that we've been building. And those things are coming, but before we commit to building out a lot of boilerplate new infrastructure and things like that, we want to make sure that we're hitting the right balance of fun and Web3 engagement. Right, you've heard me say before, like a primary goal of ours is to let the community or have the community own their own data, right? And we want to make sure that we can make good on that as a process and like from a product and business perspective before we take on the commitment to build all of that stuff directly into things like games that could play on Xbox and things like that, right? There's a long way to go too from like a legal in terms of service perspective with some of these different stores. Apple and Google in particular have very particular requirements around how what applications are allowed to do on their platform, and we have to comply with those things. So our goals really are to build a set of patterns and processes that work for us and then refine them and hone them as we go and see if we can push the envelope a little bit on some of those things and start to build an audience of traditional game players and fans of the story and things like that where we can meet them where they are and help them on their Web3 journey basically.
Yeah. I think another thing also may be worth mentioning about browser first is that some experiences may end up being available only in certain places and not in browser, like the Dragonfly Social Club. But with most experiences, starting browser first is also good in terms of stress testing. In terms of scalability, because browser has a lot of limitations about what you can do with graphics and stuff like that. And so when you bump up against those quick, you then find out, is that going to be an issue for what we're trying to do on this particular thing? And therefore, does this need to not be browser? If we start with everything desktop application and then go, can it fit into browser? The answer is almost certainly going to be no. We just, would have let ourselves in the go wild phase, put things in there that then have become fundamental that just can't allow to be ported over. But, starting on the browser side, we can go, hey, most things it works, but this thing, actually, this is not going to be browser, because then we won't be able to do this thing that's fundamental to the experience we're making in this particular mini game or such and such.
Yeah, that's very true. It is the most difficult platform to work on because obviously performance is critical, is key, right? And that's where we had landed on some of this toon shading stuff, and again, some of the art will probably change here. But another thing is the browser is single threaded, right? So we can't really run background processes the same way that we can on a thick client, right? So it really does force us to design for those types of limitations, and in a certain sense, mobile platforms as well, VR platforms, like Oculus, for example, those also have similar hardware constraints. So building this way does make sure that we can grow into building higher and higher fidelity experiences, and that we're designing things that are maintainable from the beginning.
So Matt, also, you switched over to Crossy and to show off some of that, but I believe you also reloaded that biome, which you were trying to fly around, which was stuck earlier. Should we give that another try? See if the demo gods have blessed us.
Yeah. It turns out that I was using
the basic thing.
This is going to sound super stupid, but I was using the wrong keyboard.
I can just imagine you with like 8 keyboards, just every conceivable angle around you.
Yeah, well, I've got a Linux machine sitting right here in front of me as well, and I was accidentally using that keyboard. Yeah, so you can see here, like, obviously this is not complete. We haven't the character or the camera we've allowed to free flow, right? So you can kind of fly around almost like a drone, right? And this is actually how we shot the trailers, right? Was that we had a camera in here, and we can send that camera on a path through this world, just like you would normally for a drone, right? But that's a perfect example of something that we're going to want to play test when we open this up. This particular environment, or these environments, can represent a few different things, right? Right now there's no light up features in here. There's nothing tied into it. It's really just a demo. And that's something that, we can put directly on the website and allow anyone to connect to and log in and check out. Or, we can also make it so that when you do log into this, then you can bring in your own NFTs and make this experience really kind of yours. This isn't necessarily like, this is, V0.1 of what land looks like, right? But what we want to do is get this in the hands of people. So you might decide, like, what, hey, having this camera be able to fly around like this, actually, we want to be locked to the ground, and we want to be able to run and jump and things like that, and make it more of like a player experience, and then maybe even be able to toggle into the drone flying sort of camera and things like that. So that's just an example of something that we've talked about internally, but those are the types of feedback that we're going to hope to get from the community as we start to release all of these different pieces of content. Like, hey, this is cool, but it'd be a lot better if it worked like this. Obviously, we can't promise that we're going to build everything that comes through, but our hope is that as we go on this journey together, and as we're open sourcing our tools and showing people how we're doing this, the things that are really critically important that only we can do, we'll build those things, and then hopefully the community has the capacity and competency themselves to be able to build the things that they really want to, and we can really start to collaborate on this work and start to build these things in a way that we can kind of force multiply the work that we're all doing together, and make sure that everyone has something in here to make them happy and whatnot, and things like that.
Yeah, got to say, I'm loving that little movement on the water on the website.
Yeah, that's the mountain biome, I think. None of this is shared publicly yet, by the way. I'm running this all on my local machine, but we will be sharing these once we we've got a few more things in the backlog we need to fix and finish. Get the controls need a little bit of work. The window resizing needs a little bit of work. The biomes themselves are actually rather large. They're clocking in right around 100, 150 megs for each one, which is a little bit too big for a mobile phone. So we need to make sure that we can get those assets streaming to a mobile device in a way that makes sense. I saw someone earlier in here, said that they really would appreciate if we prioritize a mobile experience, and that's definitely a goal for us, right? It's still going to run in the browser, but you should be able to run this within the context of MetaMask, which is really just a Chrome engine under the hood. I think it depends on the platform actually, but things like that we're going to be testing internally to get this to a point where we can release them. And then over the past few weeks, we spent a lot of time putting in process automation and tools. There's a set of tools that we use in software engineering called continuous integration and continuous deployment, which should help us go very fast with these things. So we can take feedback that's coming in from the community. If it's something that we can work in fairly quickly, we'll do that. We'll fix the bugs and we'll push out new versions of that. And we have a lot of that infrastructure in place now, which should make this feel like you guys should see a pretty tight feedback loop once we get this out the door.
I mean, to just add there, I mean, we had obviously some DevOps stuff in place before, but it has just been leveled up several times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's really exciting.
It's now proper DevOps.
Yeah, it was like late Friday. I got the Crusty Toad version up onto the website, right, and connected in this way. It was like just 2 days ago that we got that full circle connected, and it's cool to see all that come together. This is something that I've been working on for quite a while now, and really trying to get it so that we have the proper equipment in place to be able to build for multiple platforms, to be able to disseminate and distribute this and let people give their feedback and mess around with it.
Yeah, I gotta say it's pretty cool stuff. And just to confirm, it's not just that one biome. All 7 of the biomes have playable experiences effectively. So there's a lot that's been going on behind the scenes, and we're really, really excited to be able to open this up and get everyone in there and get your feedback. Awesome. So I know traditionally we would normally open up to questions at this sort of point in time. So just to reiterate, if anyone did have any specific questions, feel free to shoot them in the YouTube channel or in Discord, and we'll be happy to answer them. Otherwise, Hazer, great to have you up here, sir. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
So tell me, what's been keeping you busy?
Well, in the last couple of minutes, it's been pasting Disney song lyrics into the chat. But been doing a bunch of stuff on the AI side, which is nothing new over the last few weeks. But there's some pretty cool stuff coming. I think there's going to be a way to start integrating it more. So working on that and then just trying to help out. Yeah,
I got to say it's been a pleasure having you on board and working with the team. And I know I've been looking at some of this AI advancements. It is absolutely mind blowing. I've been tinkering with Frogzilla, with Stable Diffusion, and marveling at what this thing can do. Not to shill too much, but if anyone hasn't looked into Stable Diffusion, it's effectively a free version of Midjourney, and it's very, very cool.
And you can run it locally too. And I will say too, I've got an okay setup. I did not expect it to run as well as it does locally on my setup. I've been kind of amazed. But yeah, I'm working on some video stuff. So as soon as I get the kinks worked out in that workflow, things could get really interesting.
Amazing.
Yeah, I saw a question come through, when release, when ship date. I would love to be able to give you an answer besides soon TM, but instead I think what I'd rather describe is the process of where we are and how we are going to make that decision. So we really see this business or this project as having 3 core components, right? There's technology, art and content production, and then communication, dissemination, and distribution. And we've been very, very hard at work in getting all of that organized. A game like this, while it's based on the Frogger mechanics, the mechanics are relatively simple, but we are trying to put some features in here to make it fun and make it very froggy and specific to our community. And right now we've completed a lot of the research on all of that, and put some features in here and play tested them, and we've got some things that we think are pretty good that should hit the mark. And over the course of the next 2 weeks, we are working through all of the details and all of those things to get a better understanding of what the level of effort is to actually build and implement them. And that process is still kind of in the works right now. And once it's finished, what we will do is, organize that, schedule it, and then we'll have a better understanding of, roughly what the target is. I'm very hesitant to give a specific time or number because I've made that mistake before and I got burned. So soon TM, and as you can see, it's playable. So once we feel very confident that we've got a few different light up features in there, we want to make sure that it makes sense for frogs to be in that game narratively. We want to make sure that there's a nod to the LSDs in there as well, to make sure that they also fit narratively and that the story fits as part of the overall story. And I don't want to give too much more away on that, but we should know within the next couple of weeks what the delivery target looks like.
Soon TM. Awesome. So I see we've got a question from Frogland Hopkins in Discord. When will Roadmap 2.0 be out? And 2 is 2024. Where is Frogland then, if we may dream? So good questions. If you're expecting a bullet point roadmap, so to speak, that hasn't really been a priority. Our focus on Roadmap 2.0 really has been fun and interactivity, I think, is the main focus for what we're trying to achieve over the course of this year. With that, it's going to be shown in a number of ways by enhancing what we already have, but also by building in these new experiences and mini games. So I think that is really the main focus over this bear season. We need to make sure we're well prepared for the next bull run, and with that, we need to have a fun, enjoyable world that is not just an empty void. So if we can dream as to 2024, I'm going to assume you mean the end of 2024, because again, a year is not as good as 2 years. I would like to see us having a number of our minigame releases on a multitude of different platforms. I'd like to see Frogland's larger experience itself moving towards something beyond just the Dragonfly Social Club. And of course, I'd like to see our community grow a order of magnitude, if not 2. I'll pass that over to anyone else.
May I go full Rambo and throw in a bunch of things?
Yeah, I have one. If I can go, if you don't mind, if I go first, I have one very specific thing. And I think on that timeline, I would very, very much like to see a full body of work or unit of content produced primarily by the community and supported by us. Right. And what I mean by that is it doesn't necessarily have to be a game, but, something that the community has come together on, an initiative that is driven primarily by the leadership of the people who care the most about this project, being primarily in the driver's seat, and us as the primary development team providing support for getting that vision and that goal out, but not necessarily being in the critical path of development on that. That is a very strong goal for me. What that looks like exactly, I'm not quite sure, but I think with the some of the instructional conversations that we have over the course of the next 6 to 8 weeks, while we're also releasing some of the tooling and some of these experiences that we've built, maybe that will coalesce together and we can find something that we can all work together towards.
Cool. So I'd really like to see a strong catalog of initial mini games that speak to the ecosystem, such that you might go into the Dragonfly Social Club on an evening because you want to listen to a band that we've lined up to be in there, or you've lined up, or go to an art show that a friend is setting up where they're showing some things off, or a spoken poetry night, and then may click out of there with an experience that takes you into a game on the browser side. In that experience, then actually you win something, and when going back into the Discord to chat with friends in text and voice, you're able to kind of use one of the bots and see something in your inventory there from that browser experience. And that's kind of what one of the user stories of this stitching these tools together kind of starts to look like. I guess also 2024 is a fair amount of time. So I'd say in addition, I'm very keen for a couple of our tools to be pretty robust and public ready, a couple versions into public use by then, both on things like the game framework stuff that we are working on, that it becomes really easy for third parties to launch games into this space, as well as some of our NFT builder type stuff. So that makes it really easy for guilds and gangs to spin up their own NFTs within the Discord economy, and that it's more than a textual version. It's actually speaking to the blockchain.
That all sounds awesome.
What are you, Lolly? Any what are your aspirations for the next, let's say, 24 months?
Oh man. I mean, I think Froggy Digital's answer of seeing something that's entirely produced from the community, start to finish. I think that would be something really cool. Although, if I'm being honest, I also kind of feel like that's going to happen sooner than 2024, because I think there are so many members of the community who have learned or are learning so many new skills and just absolutely excelling at them, that I kind of think they're going to continue to excel and impress us and beat that 2024 date. So I'm not. I mean, if you'd asked me that same question last year at this time about where we would be now, I would not have any idea, and I would nowhere near guess where we actually are. So I don't entirely know, but I am absolutely certain that it's going to be somewhere pretty incredible.
A lot can happen in 24 months.
I also see. Go ahead.
I mean, I want to jump into the Dragonfly Social Club on a curve.
I mean, it goes without saying.
That's what I want to do.
So there's also a question here from Bingus. Are the tokens in the game the same as the Discord frog coins? And I'm going to say that there will be some continuity, some respect of history. At the same time, there may be certain things that need to be tweaked. I mean, the supply is massive in Discord, so that may be something which remains like proportionally the same for people who currently hold, but that it gets refactored down just so people don't have to read really long numbers. That keeps it fair. There may be other changes like that, but so is it canon? No. Is it going to inform our decisions? Yes.
Yeah, I think I hope to have a better answer for that by the next town hall. Like we get a couple
Thanks, Matt.
No.
I'm joking.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think that was the politically correct answer, but I think something that I'll add to what Dunlove said is that we have a couple of ideas of how to make that work that are still percolating, and Crossy Toad itself, like I think it's probably reasonable for us to say that it's a single player infinite runner, at least for the very first version. And one of the primary ways that we want to make that fun for people is competitive leaderboards, right? So yeah, we've got a couple of ideas of how exactly that's going to work, and I would like a little bit more time to be able to flesh that out, so we can either come out with something strong that we believe in and stand behind, or potentially have a couple of different options and let people give us feedback on which one they like best.
Nice. I'm seeing a couple other questions popping up here. So K Bernie's asking if we have any other ideas for what the second mini game will be like. He might be getting a little bit ahead of himself. We know.
No, don't say anything specific.
Okay.
What I'll say is that we have no less than 10 different concepts that we've looked at that have at least been vetted from the idea of the concept phase, right? And a couple of them are farther along than others, but which one is going to come next, I think, is largely going to depend on how the release of this one goes, right? And what we learn and gain from that as a community together, and where we want that to go. There are two in particular, I think, maybe three, that are kind of leading candidates. One of which is very, very deep into the Frogland lore. One is a bit higher concept, and another one focuses primarily on partnerships, other projects, and things like that. And which one of those we decide to lead with, I think, is going to come down to how well this one is received and where people want to go with it. How's that sound? There's a lot of alpha in all of that. Not telling you what I wanted to say. Yeah. There's some things.
I mean, I'm also, again, we have done a bunch of fleshing out of proof of concept and beyond on some of these, but if there's any specific games that you as individuals like playing, we'd always like to hear what that is. Because again, you are already members of this community, and so you represent a lot of other members who may not have heard of Frogland. And so knowing what you like will probably resonate with a lot of people outside of this space, outside of our initial community. So if you had any games that you particularly like, and we're looking at games that you can pick up and play for a few minutes at a time, all the way to sitting down for an hour or two for a session, we're always keen to hear what's tickling people at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I've made no secret of this, that I want a Final Fantasy III style battle game, personally. That's what I want.
Yeah.
But whether or not we build that next, I don't know. I think we all kind of have our favorites, and things. There's champions for everything. But yeah, to reiterate what you said, Snoop, always looking for more ideas and concepts. And also, like, I mean, if a group of you want to take a crack at something, we're happy to support that. The tooling that we're building is designed specifically to be utilized by other teams to be able to work with our platform. So, there are a number of free open source games that are out there on GitHub, that support a couple of different other platforms too. I mean, we're working primarily in Unity right now, but we have experimented a little bit with Unreal Engine. I know some other people in the community have also been experimenting with Unreal. There's Game Maker is another platform that actually makes it pretty straightforward to build things like platformers or isometric 2D games. And there's a lot of examples on how to do that. Godot is another engine. So our tooling is designed to be somewhat agnostic from like what that perspective is. So yeah, I mean, if there's something that kind of catches your fancy, or you guys think is a really, really good idea, like let's go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely don't be restricted just by Unity alone, because I think it's important that Frogland as a metaverse is sort of trans-device, if you will. It needs to exist on more than just one machine. And so if you're on your phone, if you're on your Switch eventually, if you're on your desktop computer, if you're simply on a browser, you should always be able to jump in and still have fun with those same people, regardless of where they are and what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's why having platform agnostic tools is so important. This software development kit that's that again will make Frogland this seamless experience is such an important part, but also such a huge undertaking as well.
Yeah, like I would love nothing more than for us to have, something like Crossy Toad out there, and you can play it, you can, chat, you can, flex your leaderboard position, go back to your land and see your trophies sitting right there in your room from that game. Continue the conversation maybe with your friends who are still in that chat just by going to a different channel, and then maybe check in on somebody who's playing like a Pokemon style trading card game or something like that, and then go hop in there and start playing that, and then completely decimate your enemies and come back and check out your new trophy in your land. Right, things like that. Those types of stories I think are fun and engaging and rewarding. Not all of it has to be gameplay focused. I think Dunlove earlier said talked about events or art and things like that can be appreciated purely for its visual or auditory appeal. There's plenty of space for those types of things. So big and small. There's a lot of room here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Catching up on a couple of questions here.
Oh, your questions are getting too specific for today. Yeah, Bingus, I like where your head is at.
Good answer.
Yeah, I agree.
I
agree.
Well, I'll say we've had a good town hall so far. I do want to give a quick heads up. We have 10 more minutes, so if you have any other questions, speak now. Otherwise, you'll have to wait for another couple of weeks until our next town hall. Sorry, Donlove, was I interrupting you?
No, not at all.
Excellent. Then, yes, if people haven't seen the new website, be sure to go to frogland.io to see the latest editions. This is going to be, again, upgraded in coming weeks as well. So keep your eyes peeled. It is a continually breathing beast.
I can take this one from Frogthany here. So Frogthany asks, in the mini games, why would one want to own a frog, the NFT? Maybe we can think of a reason to draw them into NFTs. That is very much the design of this. So I'm not sure if I expressed this clearly earlier, but something that I've been saying internally is that there's a difference between community and audience, right? And there's that separation, while somewhat superficial. We're trying to use that as a way of demonstrating that things that are built for the community are built for frog holders and frog owners and owners of the land. And there are light up features that drive utilities specifically towards the NFTs. And then there's versions of that content that are created for a new audience, for people who don't necessarily maybe know or care about NFTs or blockchain-based technology at this point. And those are kind of the same thing. Our hope is that with Crossy Toad, we can test this hypothesis and see like what generates the fun for Crossy Toad in the community. What are those light up features that are associated with the NFTs, with the Discord economy, with potentially an economy that we can put on chain at some point in the future, and how can we extrapolate that into a proxy that fits within the Web 2 world? So like a free to play model, like that sort of thing, right? So the intention there very much is to build experiences that introduce people to the IP where they are, and people who might be playing on a bus and just download the game and they get familiar with it, they like it, they do a little bit more research, and then once they kind of already enjoy the IP, they're like, oh, there's NFTs involved in here. You know what? Maybe I've thought about that. I've heard a lot of negativity, but also some positivity. Maybe I'll give it a shot. Right? We want to put people on that on that spectrum and give them that journey to walk down and find them where they are, give them reasons to come in and stay. Right, like, so that's kind of the way that this is being structured. I do think it's definitely fair to say that everything that we're building from here on out is going to involve the NFTs in some way at some fundamental level for those who are here in the community and care, and give reasons to want to collect and trade and enjoy them and have fun with them.
Yeah, very well said. Awesome. So I think while we're waiting for the final few questions to come through, Matt, do you want to give us a quick little recap on DevCon? Because I know, that was
I can do that while we're in a downtime here. But let me answer this one here. So the question is, will the mini games also be multiplayer so you can compete against other players? That is definitely a design target. For the first version of Crossy Toad, it's going to be single player. Part of the reason for that is just to keep the complexity down. We spent a fair amount of time over the past year working with a couple of different multiplayer technologies to see how they work together, and the types of things that can be built. And with this particular game, one of the things, the first version of it's going to be single player, and one reason was when we were testing this with multiplayer, the camera angle and the design space on the board already has a lot of stuff, with the enemies and having to cross all the lanes. And we felt that getting multiplayer into Crossy Toad in particular was going to take a lot of effort to make sure that it's fun and that it doesn't distract from the experience. So that's one of the perfect things that I'm hoping once we go through and people have their hands to get their time to get their hands on it and they play with it, like, if the community says, hey, this would be great, but like it really needs to be multiplayer, like that's kind of what's missing, then, we would take on that work. We just want to make sure that we're doing that, responsibly, and we're doing that from, in a way that is going to be sustainable for the project. So it's very different for us to say, hey, do you want multiplayer? Like, and if people say, of course, yes, right? But then like actually getting it in your hands and seeing it and saying, okay, well, yeah, it would be cool, but it's actually not necessary, right? We can't necessarily answer that question ourselves. We have to test that. Like, we have to test that out in the open. We have to work that stuff through the open. So yes, experiences will absolutely be multiplayer. I just don't know. I don't think this one will be for the very first release of it.
It's probably worth adding, though, Domlev, that there will still be this competitive edge. There are leaderboards, so you will still be able to become the best of the hoppers in Frogland.
Yeah. I'll give it another little quick hint here too. So one of the meta play things that we're trying to get to with Crossy Toad also is to give gangs, guilds, and syndicates their own, give them a reason to root for specific players to elect a champion, if you will, to see if they can climb the leaderboard. And we're trying to play around with that to see how we can make that fun, because we really do think if we're building a metaverse here and not just a mobile game, like we really want this to be cross media, right? So like, how can people participate in Discord, on Twitter, and also play the game itself, and have some sense of contribution and ownership over that, right? Like, those are the types of things that we're looking at. We've got a few different things that we're experimenting with that I think would will check that box, but obviously we're not going to have time to build everything, so we need to figure out like what's the best one, or what are the top two, and then give you guys a choice and see, and like let you play with it and see what happens.
I got to say, so I'm seeing some really, really cool ideas here. Let's get them in the Discord if they're definitely not in the Discord. If they are, happy days, but let's make sure we're keeping track of them.
Yeah, keep these ideas flowing. Honestly, we're looking, we're paying attention. The stuff is great. None of us are smarter than all of us, right? So I think like the more of the stuff that goes out, the more imaginative we can get, the more that we can tie this stuff in. I very much, it's no secret that I want to see the FRPG play a much more critical role into how the meta plays out through some of these different games that we have, tournaments and things like that. So yeah, this is all great stuff. I freaking love you guys.
Rumors that the dragonfly can literally fly in Frogland. Is that confirmed? Neither confirmed nor denied. Let's just say awesome. DevCon. What were you going to say about DevCon?
Okay, DevCon. So DevCon in particular, I mean, the primary thing that I focused on there was zero knowledge proofs. And I thought it might be good to just talk a little bit about what that is and what that means, so that other people have an understanding of how we can use this technology. So a zero-knowledge proof is a way of making a mathematically provable assertion about something about you or yourself without actually disclosing what that is, right? So the most common and best example that I've been using is when you go to a bar, here in the U.S., you have to be 21 to be able to drink. So with a zero-knowledge proof, you would theoretically be able to prove that you are over the age of 21 without actually disclosing what your real age is, right? In a way that this could work would be, say, you have a driver's license that's issued by a government. Maybe we have a piece of software, and I mean the royal we here, that uses an AI to validate that driver's license is in fact issued by a government authority and it's authentic, and it can read your birthday off of it, and it can respond to a challenge for a proof and say, yes, this birthday is over the age of 21, and then it just completely deletes the data, right? So we don't actually keep or store or know. I'm oversimplifying this a little bit, but the basic idea is that you as a user should be able to prove something that is true about you, what you have, what you know, what you own, a lot of different things without actually having to show us what that is. And we can use this for things like messaging protocols. So we can let you share messages between yourselves in a private way, where we can see encrypted data and we can even do things with that encrypted data. But you kind of get to set the bar on like what your privacy expectations are. And this technology is also used for scalability in Ethereum, and that's what people are focused on primarily. But I think personally that the privacy component of this really is what's going to matter for projects like ours and other types of applications that are being built, right? We want people to be able to have a lot of control over that and what data they share, what data they're willing to share, and not just have it be, a toggle button like, yes, you can put cookies on my browser, right? Like that doesn't really do anybody any good. But by building things like that and building tools in that way and using that type of math, we can enable you guys to create your own circles of trust and decide like who in your own circles and groups and communities is allowed to know what information about you. And that's really, really powerful because it can also be revoked, right? So that's kind of the high level of it.
So two things I wanted to ask regarding this, and also actually first start with the statement, and you can challenge that if you think it's not quite on point here. But why might a good actor want privacy? I think so. There's two things that immediately come to mind for me. One, if you look at the DAO that wanted to buy a copy of the Constitution, and they were outbid by a very small margin because their bid was public knowledge. Like that's an example of where you have a good actor or you have at least not a bad actor, a DAO that has good reason for privacy despite using open, transparent blockchain tech. And I mean also many people donated to Ukraine when the war broke out, using Ethereum, using Bitcoin, things like that. It's easy to imagine some import exporter who lives in America who had a business relationship with Russia, who may have wanted to donate there because he actually believes in the Ukrainian cause there, but doesn't because he's worried about the transparency of that being linked back to him and what that might do to his import-export license.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, privacy is important for a lot of reasons, right? So all the things that you just described, right, are great examples. Asymmetrical access to information is one of the things that the economy kind of runs on, right? Markets behave in that way too. And by enabling certain types of privacy and not others, right, we can actually have a lot more fine control over how things function and provide better transparency and accountability while still allowing people to keep their own data private, right? This kind of gets into a pretty significant thread of computational research, right? So there's a couple other pieces of technology besides zero-knowledge proofs. One is called multi-party computation, and the other one is called homomorphic encryption, right? So these things together, multi-party computation basically means that I have some data that means something to me. I need it to be worked on, but I don't want everyone externally to know what that is. However, I do want to prove to some authority that data was worked on correctly. You can actually chunk it out and give one part to one person, one part to another, one part to another, one part to another. And to each of those individual groups, they don't actually know what that data is meaningless to them. All they know is that they need to run some computation on it, like run it through an AI, for example, right? And then they give it back to you and you can stitch it all together. And then now it has meaning, right? Like that's a really it's also a very useful paradigm or tool, because then that also you can say like certain types of things have to run on government servers and other things don't, right? That type of thing. And then the homomorphic encryption piece, this is actually some of the same technology that we used for the election system that I built a couple years ago. And the way that this works is that you as a user can encrypt a piece of data and then share that encryption of that data, and you know what it is. No one else knows what it is, but then we can use that data again to do things like train models or to prove that a company's balance sheet is in compliance with some law, or that some actor in a market has enough liquidity to cover or that they have enough collateral to back up without showing exactly how much that collateral is. So that stuff paired with the zero-knowledge proofs. The zero-knowledge proofs are the mechanism, the descriptive mechanism that we can use to prove that those things are true. And then the homomorphic encryption and the multi-party computation are the ways that we actually execute those things themselves, right? So there are pretty much every business out there has trade secrets, things that they don't necessarily want to share externally. I'll use a great example. So, in manufacturing computer chips, the metallurgy that goes into how those chips are made and manufactured is a trade secret, right? TSMC has their own way of doing it. Intel has their own way of doing it, yada, 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 right? But nevertheless, they might want to subcontract research on how to improve those types of processes or things out without disclosing the entire thing, right? You could theoretically work with encrypted data sets that are distributed across a number of different vendors, a consortium, if you will, and then also prove that work has been done correctly, right? In that case, for a company like Intel or TSMC, privacy is absolutely critical. Like if that information gets out, there's a story, I don't know if it's true or not, but like the formula for Coca-Cola is shared between like 6 or 8 different people or something. And like no one actually has all the individual pieces, and they've got a very robust process around how to protect that, right? This type of tech can enable those types of things. That's also, it's actually very useful for the things that we're doing here. I mean, I know we're building video games and whatnot, but your privacy is just as important as anyone else's, in my opinion, right? And you should have the tools and the ability to be able to decide how much information you want to share, and this tech enables you to get better benefits out of your information existing without necessarily having to share it, right? Like that's kind of where this is all magic.
So, I mean, privacy for consumers, privacy for people playing games. Okay, so that it enables that part. In terms of like direct game features. Like what are some things you can see that like supporting?
Zero knowledge.
Yeah,
I can give you a great example. So there's a game called Dark Forest. If anybody's not familiar with it, you should check it out. They use zero knowledge proofs, and it's kind of a way of like a very simplistic version. It's a kind of a way of playing Battleship on chain, right? Where you've got a board where you've set up your ships, and then you're taking shots at someone else's board, and you don't know whether you're hitting or not, right? And using the zero knowledge proofs, when we set up the boards, we can make assertions or commitments about where our pieces are on that board so that you can't lie about actually getting hit, right? Like that's kind of the way that it works. It enables things like that where we can share state around secret information amongst publicly, basically, and then everyone can kind of understand what that state is, and we know that it's immutable and it's not going to change, and we can prove it with math, but you don't actually have to disclose what it is. When we were at DevCon, I heard a really great example of a player having a particular position on a turn-based strategy board, and then being able to cast like a smoke bomb or something, and then the fidelity of the information while that smoke bomb is out there, you don't really know. They can be in any one of 9 spots, right? And you know that they're in that vicinity, but you don't know exactly what spot they're on. And we can make assertions about that on chain and prove it, right? That's really cool because that enables all sorts of types of stealth style character classes that can exist on a blockchain that couldn't exist 3 years ago, right, before this technology had matured. So it's coming along. I mean, these things are also, they're still very hard to work with, right? It's there's some ways to go around with making this a little bit more accessible to developers, right? But it's all there. The pieces are there. The research has been done. The engineering implementations exist, and there are real people working on these things for a variety of different things, not just games, but like primarily scalability and privacy, in blockchain technology, and also like information sharing. Like that stuff's all. I'm extremely surprised and impressed by how fast it's going. Frankly, like. It was kind of a big deal this year at DEF CON. We'll say probably no less than 40% of all of the talks were all around zero knowledge, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, you can't underestimate the significance of a metaverse where you control your own data. It is a very powerful thing, something that is desperately needed in this day and age.
Nice. Kate Bernie's asking what's going on with Magic integration. We're talking to Treasure. They're friends, and we have an ongoing dialogue with them. We're trying to figure out like what the right way to integrate is. So, that's just full transparency. I mean, I don't want to get much more specific than that, but we're very impressed with what they're building, and we think that they're really onto something. They're building in a very Web3 way, we like what they have, and we're just trying to figure out what the right approach is, and that it hasn't quite materialized yet. We've talked about a lot of different stuff, but we'll figure it out.
There's cool stuff, but we got to prioritize, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Well, I've got to say, we're quarter past the hour. Unless there are any other final questions, I think it's probably a good time to wrap up our first video stream town hall. Awesome. So again, I want to thank you all very much for joining us. I think this is recorded, so if you're watching this after the fact, you can tune in every couple of weeks for this new format of town halls. Otherwise, we look forward to our next town hall in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you all ever so much, and have a great rest of your Sunday.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, bye guys. That was fun.
Yeah.